it going, everybody? My name's Donovan, and in this video I'm going to talk about being happy alone. So like I said, the topic of this video is being happy alone, and the first thing I want to do is knock out a little bit of nuance. This video is not going to be about being happy while single or being happy while lonely. Those are two different topics, I think, with enough nuance that it's worth making separate videos there. And if that's something you're interested in, feel free to throw a comment below and I will make a future video on those topics. But for this video, I'm going to focus on being happy by yourself, not those other two cases. So I think the most common case, or what I hear most often from people, is they're happy when they're out doing stuff or they feel fine, but then when they get time to themselves, they have some sort of problem. They feel unhappy in some way. So the question, that I've run into is, how can I be happy when I'm alone or when I'm on my own? And there's a couple things to unpack here, and it's kind of hard without knowing the nuances of, the individual situation. But there are a few things that we can touch on and kind of think about. So when you are not alone, when you're out, working or hanging out with friends or doing some sort of activity, there's a lot of external stimulation. There's a lot of things to capture your attention and to keep you kind of focused on, right? And when you come home or wherever you are that you end up alone, then all of those things that fight for your attention kind of disappear. And some of the things that start to bubble up are the thoughts or feelings that may not have as much power to grab your attention when you're doing other things. So one of the main reasons that people feel unhappy when they're alone is that they're with these thoughts and feelings that they don't normally have. Now, it really depends on how you're wired, but some of us, when we don't have that stimulation, it's a flood of negative or uncomfortable thoughts and feelings that show up. And so a lot of people, when they're alone, to get rid of some of these, do things like play video games, watch TV, try to call people, try to get more stimulation, more things to fill that space. But that's never going to solve the underlying problem, which is when you're alone, things feel uncomfortable. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 4 different things to kind of think about. And again, it really depends on the nuance of the situation, but these are at least starter ideas or the most common reasons that people don't feel happy alone and areas to look at. So maybe if one of them appeals to you more than the others, you focus more time there and kind of unravel what's going on. The first thing that we're going to talk about is facing problems head on. So a lot of times when people don't feel comfortable alone, it's because there's some sort of underlying issue. And when the level of stimulation goes down, when there's, not people around, or there's not some sort of activity, or there's not something to watch, then all these uncomfortable thoughts and feelings around a particular issue come up. So let's say that you're moving soon and you don't want to deal with that particular issue, so you keep up the level of stimulation. Now again, you're never going to solve the problem that way. So if there's a big underlying problem, one of the things you need to do to be happy alone is to really get clear on what that problem is and find a solution forward. Now, of course, this seems like very simple advice, but that can be the thing that blocks people from being happy alone. Moving is a little bit more trivial of an issue, but there are other things that are more chronic, like maybe low self-worth, that can continually come back and haunt you every time you're alone. And if you don't figure out ways to deal with that, you will never be able to optimize your happiness when you're by yourself. Now, the second idea is learning to process your thoughts and feelings. So again, when you're alone, there's a lower level of stimulation from external sources. So what tends to happen is you get more of these thoughts and feelings because there's less competition on your focus. So if you don't have the tools, if you haven't been exposed to ways to manage your thoughts and feelings when they're uncomfortable, what can happen is when the stimulation dies down, you get a lot more of these things that you don't know what to do with and you just don't quite feel right. So there's a lot of different tools for this. I'm not going to go over that many here just because it's its whole own separate topic, but it's a really good place to start thinking about things like meditation, mindfulness, emotional regulation. Like those are the 3 big things that I would look up if you're looking to get more familiar in this realm and get more used to dealing with your thoughts and feelings that are uncomfortable. The third thing that needs to happen, or that is a very common stumbling block for people who are having a hard time feeling happiness alone, is there's not enough structure. So you can create your own structure by introducing goals or challenges into your life. So, one of the most important things for happiness is to have a clear sense of purpose. And maybe you have that most of the time when you're out doing stuff and the stimulation levels are high, but when you come back home or when you're on your own and when you're by yourself, you don't feel as much of that purpose. So there's a lot of different ways that you can fill this gap. And of course, it's not about doing, really high intensity things all the time and always having purpose in every single possible action. You can relax and do things like that. But if you're having trouble feeling happy when you're by yourself and you're turning to some of these other things for stimulation, it may be because you haven't tuned into something that is a good outlet for you, is a good way for you to get purpose. So one of the best ways to kind of add more structure is with these little challenges and goals, and they can be any size. So for example, you might not drink caffeine for a month or something, or you might work on a project to paint a picture every day. Something that gives you a little bit more structure and a little bit more of something to look forward to or work on can really help when you're alone to take your mind in a direction that's not just, oh wow, there's nothing to do, I'm not really working on anything, because these are uncomfortable thoughts or feelings that tend to happen for people who have a hard time being alone. So again, just look through, again, it could be big, small, different ideas and pick a project that might be able to help you. And you don't have to have a particular set out passion beforehand. You can also have idea exploration or exploration of a new skill be one of the things. It doesn't really matter what fills that spot as long as it's something that's actually stimulating in a way that promotes growth and purpose as opposed to some of the other ways that we can just waste time. The fourth thing that you can kind of look at or think about to be happy alone is to invest in your well-being. So that's a little bit of a cop out because that's just a general happiness tip. But one of the big things that tends to make people feel unhappy when they're alone is not paying attention to some of these other signals. And then when they're by themselves, they're stronger. So, for example, if you're sleep deprived and then you end up by yourself, like the rest of the day, you have this stimulation, you're doing stuff, other things are competing for your attention. You get home and you feel not good, you feel low energy because you haven't paid attention to your well-being. You haven't invested in things like sleep and diet. So that's the last area to kind of look at, stress, other kinds of factors that kind of affect your well-being. And this is different than the advice that you sometimes hear of treat yourself. It's not really about, going out and doing something nice for yourself. It's about looking at the factors that are important for happiness and making sure that those things are in line. Because again, when the stimulation levels go down, other things come up and your body, the feelings that you have in your body and your mind and emotions and stuff, those things that are internal bubble up stronger. So if these internal things are not in the right place, you're more likely to feel unhappy or uncomfortable with them. So those are the four kind of ideas or areas that I think it's a good idea to focus on if you're having trouble being happy alone. As always, I like to kind of add a couple reflection questions or exercises at the end. So for this video, think about the following. 1. Are any problems causing you to be unhappy when alone? 2. How familiar are you with your thoughts and feelings? 3. What goals or challenges are you currently working on? Hopefully that gives you a couple things to think about. It's a little hard to diagnose the root cause of what is making you unhappy when being alone without getting more details and more information and digging a little bit further. But hopefully that gives you a few ideas of where to investigate. That's all I've got for this video. So as always, if you have any questions, comments, topics you want me to cover, throw them down in the box below and I will get to them as soon as I can. And I will see you next time.
You can check out more content at howtohappy.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date on the videos. We've also got a Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook that you can check out. Reflect, take action, and enjoy life. See you next time.